All right, welcome back to the Everyone's Different podcast. It's your boy Tristan Jass with my co-host
Trent. We have a really special guest. Introduce him.
Yes, sir. 262 legend, my guy Ben Rothwell. How you doing?
Yay.
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks guys for having me on.
Man,
Everyone's different.
everyone's
I
different.
mean, not everybody makes a living punching people in the face.
No.
No,
I
man.
thought that was normal.
Man.
Fucking fight people. Oh yeah, they're gonna watch what I say.
Oh no, you're
No,
good.
you're good.
You're good,
This is
man.
rated R podcast.
It's
Swear
all
away,
good.
buddy.
It's all good. But yeah, no, we it's kind of crazy. So we were considering doing this at my house in the studio, but we were like, you know what? Let's bring it right to the gym. So Ben, you literally just got done with a workout.
Yep, we had a pad hitting session with our friend Carlos, who held some pads for you too. He helped me out.
Yes, sir.
And does a good job just keeping it fresh, light today. I fight April 27th, BKFC, Knuckle Mania, and I'm the Coco main event fighting Todd Duffy. Just throwing that out there. I had a pretty serious sparring session yesterday, so I'm at 42. I don't recover like I used to, but my passion for this is what keeps me going.
Yeah, dude, hell yeah. First of all, I gotta say, I'm a big fan of all of the work that you've done throughout your whole career. So I just got to get that out the way now. So it's really cool to be able to sit down with you. But the BKFC, how the hell do you go in there? I got to ask that off the rip.
How? Yeah. Are you worried making like a transition into that kind of thing?
So it was shocking to people. So I've been in MMA for a long time, and I was in the UFC for 13 years of that long time, 20 plus years of fighting. And people are, knowing me as being the UFC heavyweight. We were 4-ounce gloves. And bare knuckle just started about 5 years ago, and it's a shock factor to a lot of people. Like, oh my God, there's no gloves. You're hitting with bare knuckles. And there's no doubt it's not for everybody. But I also try to remind people that really want to get into it, push comes to shove, how dangerous MMA is I don't have to worry about getting a shin from a guy my size to the head anymore, elbow, knee, an arm broke from a submission hold. I mean, MMA is freaking dangerous. There's no, we kind of keep it on the DL, but it is. It's just, it had so much scrutiny 20 years ago before it became what it is today that we didn't really talk about that. We just want to say how safe it is, because the fact remains boxing itself has, unfortunately, a lot of deaths every year. See, the gloves allow someone to take a lot of shots to the head and say, I'm okay, but they, keep fighting and their brain's getting jobbled around. And see, bare knuckle right now is in its it's a short lifespan, but at least with the 5 years of data, it has the least amount of all. So MMA and boxing, because you're getting hit with a bare knuckle, it's a distinct type of pain, unlike any of the other combat sports. There is no cushioning whatsoever. So when you get hit by it once, you don't want to get hit again. And there isn't that amount of abuse in the long term. A guy takes a couple shots, and it's like one of two things happen. He quits because he's like, I don't want no more of this, or he gets knocked out. And the fights have been, and they're very fan friendly. People see finishes. There's somebody's getting messed up. There's blood. There's more blood in this because you get cuts and stuff.
Yeah.
But, I had a pretty bad cut. It was the only time I got hit in the whole fight, and it was a pretty nasty cut, but it sewed up. You didn't ever even know what happened.
Yeah.
So cuts we can deal with compared to, limbs, knees getting blown off from a bad wrestling takedown, things like that, the constant bludgeoning of the boxing. So it's like taboo. It's like, it brings that shock factor of, oh my God, it's bare knuckle, but it's proving to be pretty safe in the actual of everything and fan friendly.
Yeah. So how do your knuckles feel? Like, that's got to be a wild, like.
It's different. It is. So my hands, I pride myself, for a lot of years in MMA, I didn't wrap my hands.
Yeah.
Really?
There was a period of time where I never did for like 5-6 years, and then I went to a kickboxing gym, and it was like, oh, this is the cool thing to do. Everybody's wrapping their hands. I'm like, I want to wrap my hands. So I started wrapping my hands. Within 3 months, my hands were getting sore and hurting, and I said, F this, and I never put them on again. And my hands actually just developed. It could be my genetics. I think it's knowing how to punch is a big deal with it too. And my hands just conditioned themselves to just, this is what we do. So a lot of years of 16-ounce gloves and MMA gloves with no wraps, and my hands just got used to it. And I wouldn't recommend it to anybody else, especially if you are a person that broke your hand. Yeah, you got to protect them.
Yeah.
Just, dude, I'm different, and that's what works for me. So I went into bare knuckle. I'm like, kind of already used to this, right? I know how to do this without hand wraps. And my very first fight, it only lasted 20 seconds, but my right hand it was sore, like it was never been sore before. And that was a 20-second fight. And then my last fight was 3 rounds, and I threw a lot of strikes and in fact, it was one of the highest output heavyweight fights today. So that means I threw a lot of punches, a lot of punches that landed, and my knuckles were a type of sore that I've never felt before. Yeah, I can admit that. If I had to fight again that night, I've been a little bit of trouble. I'd had to grit my teeth. It had been some true life self-defense for me to use my hands again. You know, and I'm a guy that when I started MMA, I had 2 fights in one night multiple times, you know, when I started this. So I was used to fighting more than once in one night.
Yeah.
And bare knuckle, that ain't happening.
Yeah.
There's no tournaments of bare knuckle happening anytime soon.
So at 42 years old, you said?
Yeah.
How is the recovery process? Like, what are you going through to get healthy?
It really depends on the fight. So when you go in there and smoke a guy in 20 seconds, hit him with 15 punches, my knuckles hurt, but I didn't get hit.
Yeah.
Felt pretty good. I think I could have turned around and fought pretty quick. The last fight, you know, I got cut. That was, you know, 3-4 weeks. There's nothing you can do about that. And that's just to not get hit. Now you got to, all right, I got to get back to training and sparring. So there's going to be a few months till I could fight again. And this has ended up, unfortunately, because I got sick. I was supposed to fight in December. I got sick. This has been a whole year. I've had a whole year off.
Yeah.
So this is a little bit too long. At 42 years old, I did not want to take a year layoff, but it happened. And that's kind of can go either way with this. You know, there's just the fact I'm 42. What I could have recovered from in, say, 4 weeks before is going to take me 3 months.
Yeah.
Like it's just the way it is.
Yeah, you just put miles on your body.
Yeah, for sure. I say let's go back and talk about where you started and how your journey to getting to where you're at now. Where did all of this start?
Probably really young, honestly. If you want to talk about it, when I was a young 5-6 years old, I was ultra aggressive, and I just always had it in me to be like I wanted to fight. You know, I wanted to fight the second graders, and I was a kindergartner. I wanted to fight the second graders and stuff like that. And it's like because for whatever reason, it always caught people's attention. Like when I would talk and be this little crazy kindergartner, and I was like, this kid cheated at football, I want to beat him up. The reaction my 7-year-old brother and his buddies got from that fueled it. You know, they're like, oh, and they just thought it was hilarious, and then they laughed. So then I wanted to fight the kid even more, and then next thing you know, I'm getting myself into a fight. You know, fighting, and you know, and then there was Bloodsport and Conan the Barbarian and all those early 1980 movies. Yeah, then they say it doesn't influence you. That's bullshit, because those movies 100% made me aggressive and want to fight.
Oh yeah,
and it doesn't mean I just went out into a Shopko or something and started fighting the air, but it was like it was on my mind.
Yeah.
And it had my parents got me into martial arts right away, I think it would have helped vent it, and I would have learned and got what I wanted, because that's what I really wanted. Watching all the ninja and martial art movies, I wanted to master. I wanted someone to teach me how to fight. Mm-hmm. My parents weren't having it. They were workhorses 24/7. They owned a restaurant, worked other jobs on top of it. So we were kind of just left on to do what we had to do. Like I kind of grew up surviving. That's different, like how to say, like not, I had a roof, you know, we had clothes, we were fed, but my parents worked. So there was a lot of like, I didn't, for what I got material things, I didn't get in that. So growing up, you know, I felt neglected, and I was angry at the world too. I was really angry. I had spinal meningitis. It almost killed me at a young age too. And then that really messed up my life, because I almost died. And then I got really fat, and then I got made fun of. So then all the upperclassmen, I went from being this little aggressive, super in shape kid, you know, at kindergarten, first grade, I at least, for whatever being cool is, whatever it is worth it then, I knew what it was, because I was like the cool kid in a sense, where I got picked first for all the sports games. Nobody messed with me. And then I had spinal meningitis. And by 3rd, 4th grade, every upperclassman made fun of me. I was the fat kid. And that shit stayed with me all through 8th grade. I was always getting made fun of and picked on for being a fat kid. So I got bullied a lot. So I have this naturally aggressive young little kid that gets bullied and abused and all this stuff. I get into high school, and not much changed. I got into shape in a sense, where a lot of kids I went to school with didn't recognize me, but like all the kids, all the sophomores up to seniors, tried to book me, push me in lockers, mess with me as a freshman, and it just further even angered me. And for whatever it was, Central Westosha loved fighting. And anytime we talked about fighting, the whole school got excited. Everybody wanted to see it. So my point is this long story. I've had a whole life of just fighting. Fighting was on my brain. It was what kids thought was cool in school. I had people bullying me, pushing me to fight. So then one day I did, and I started fighting back. And the kids that bullied me a little bit older than me, I ended up catching them in a hallway one day. There was a couple incidents where stuff happened outside of school, but I started winning. I started fighting back. And everybody was like, oh, shit, Ben Rothwell's a bad dude. And I kind of liked it. I liked it. I'm like, oh, yeah, I am a tough dude. Like, leave me alone. And then it was like, I'm going to take this shit to the next level. And the UFC was like a brand new thing back then in 1996. It was like unheard of. Like, only like diehard people knew what it was. And my buddy knew about it and talked about it. But I was like scared to even hear. Like, I don't want to fight no guy like that.
Yeah.
Like, who's this Hoist Gracie guy? What is this shit? Like, I didn't know anything. But for whatever reason, in 1999, all this long story ended up penting to an end point where my parents were like fed up with me because I was like out of control in school. I was not doing what I was supposed to do. I was really violent, and they were like, you're getting kicked out of the house unless you go to therapy. So I go to therapy, and after like so many sessions, the bottom line came down, and the therapist says, you need martial arts. He's like,
really?
All right, there's anything I can give you. He's like, you need to seek this out. Because I kept talking about it. I kept talking about how I felt like I didn't get it when I was a little kid and I always wanted it. And it was the number one thing that came up. He's like, you need this. He's like, you got to find the right place. Because I told him I didn't want to go to just anybody either.
Yeah.
Because I knew a lot of martial arts was, especially in 1999, was watered down. And I can get in a big, long story about all of that. And so that was on my mind. So I go, and we had a phone book back then, and I open up the phone book, go to martial arts, and here it is, Strasser Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I go, what the hell is that? And I did what research I could, and I'm like, I'm going to go to this place. And I go in, and the first thing the guy says is like, all right, like, let's see what you can do. And I was like, he said something, I can't remember exactly what it said, but it was kind of like, all right, like, this ain't. He didn't even ask me about a monthly membership or anything. He was just like, yeah, get out here.
So you just walked in one day?
Kind of walked in, I had shorts on. He's like, yeah, come on and do this class. I didn't know at the time, but he was scouting for me to potentially start fighting for him.
Okay.
I figured this out later on.
Yeah.
But as a 17-year-old in high school that desperately wants to learn martial arts, I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. And in the first couple weeks of being there, a guy who used to be pretty well known as Nick Aguilar, he was there, and he ends up choking me out like I didn't know anything. And he's 155 pounds, and I'm like 240 pounds. And this 155 pounds is taking my back, choking me, and I was like, whatever this is, I need to learn this.
Yeah.
And I was hooked, and I was never looking back again. And he just so happened to Dave Strasser came from a guy named Pat Militish. Pat Militish he's in the UFC Hall of Fame, and he's renowned as being one of the very first coaches to make MMA. See, when MMA first started, it was called mixed martial arts, but it was actually a boxer is going to fight a wrestler, and a kickboxer is going to fight a jiu-jitsu guy. That's what MMA started as. In the UFC, that's what it was promoted as.
Yeah.
Different disciplines to find out what discipline's the best.
Was the best.
And Pat Militish said, fuck that. I'm going to put wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and kickboxing all together. And he ended up winning the UFC title, and a bunch of people flocked to Iowa. And at one point in time, we had 4 UFC champions in the UFC at one time. So we did something right.
What the
Strasser
hell?
Came from there and brought that mentality of, this is MMA.
Yeah.
So right from the get-go, I started learning jiu-jitsu, striking, and wrestling, and I had a huge advantage over most heavyweights, and I was only 17 years old.
Yeah, because other people weren't learning that stuff yet.
And I'm training for 6 weeks. I find this guy, teach me mixed martial arts. I'm 6 weeks in, And I just meet this new guy that starts the same time I start. His name's Kai Hansen. And he's a little bit older than me. I'm 17. He's like 20. And Strasser's like, hey, there's some fights in Cleveland. You want to go fight? And I'm like, fight? I'm like in high school. I'm like, what are you talking about, fight? And Kai's like, yeah, I'm doing it. And Strasser goes, are you going to let him go by himself? And I'm like, no. He's like, well, if you're going to go, you might as well fight. And I'm like, okay. So, hey, Mom, Dad, I'm going with a friend on a trip, and my parents, this is me talking to the air because they're at a restaurant. You know,
Okay.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they're at the restaurant working.
Yeah.
Like, oh, see ya. So I hop on this guy that I known for 6 weeks and drive to Cleveland, Ohio. And we show up at 2 p.m. on like a Saturday, and we drive around. There's like a long story of us, you know, here I'm 17 years old, and I don't even know this dude, and I'm going to fight in MMA. And we find the promoter, and the promoter's like, yeah, you have to be 18. You got to fill these out. And I remember distinctively making a completely made-up social security number.
Wow.
And the guy didn't, you know, but it just shows out. I think he just did that as like a whatever because they didn't check. That shit was made up as it could get.
Yeah.
And I ended up fighting. And I meet my first opponent, which was like a funny thing in itself. And you look up this fight on the internet, it's called Worst MMA Fight Ever. Or just something of that term with Ben Rothwell. And you're going to see me, I'm 17, and the kid I'm fighting is 19, but has no business in the ring whatsoever. He's well at over 100 pounds overweight. And he thought he was showing up because the event was called Ultimate Wrestling. He had to name it that to get through the Cleveland Commission, but it was straight up fighting.
Yeah.
Dan Severn was the main event, who had just come from the UFC. So I end up obliterating this kid, and it looks bad, and the kid shouldn't have been in there, but I was 17 and scared, so I didn't care. So I ginsu this dude. But what they don't show is I had to fight the 31-year-old that beat up that other kid's friend, who he beat him in like a minute. So here I am, 17, fighting a 31-year-old man.
Wait, right after you
Right
just
after.
fought another dude?
15 minutes later.
What?
So this is my introduction to MMA. I fight twice in one night.
Okay.
So this is a fight. And me, like, I gotta like stick the dude. I'm moving my head and doing what I can, and he's throwing punches at me. And eventually, I hit him, do something, whatever. We end up on the ground. Now in Ohio at the time, the rule was you could only use open hand strike to the face.
Okay.
So I ended up fully mounting this guy because I knew jiu-jitsu. This guy has no idea what's going on in the ground. And I began open hand striking him right in the face. And I knocked him out cold with an open hand strike.
With an open hand
hand strike. I hit him right in the nose. His nose, like, and he knocked out, and the ref called it. And I was like, this is fucking for me.
So you beat a 31-year-old man's ass at 17?
So I'm 2-0 in MMA. That's all I'm thinking. I don't give a shit about the kid that shouldn't have fought. I don't care. Like, I got in there and fought. I'm 2-0, and I'm a junior in high school.
Hell yeah!
And I was that was it. Like I was like, I'm doing this. I'm doing this for my life.
That's insane. Our open hand strikes are not legal anymore, right?
You can, but why are you gonna hit someone with a palm?
Yeah,
and
why?
With a fist.
Okay.
You know, Cleveland then was trying to like MMA was new. This is 1999. They're trying to figure out MMA rules. You know that shit's out the window now. Now it's close fist.
Using your fist.
Yeah.
So I had
wow.
so this is quick. So like I fought twice in one night. That became normal for me. My next, so that was 1, 2, 3. My first 3 days of fighting, I'm 6-0.
Damn.
That means I fought 3 4-man tournaments. My first 6 times fighting.
Damn.
Wow.
I'm just curious. When you first start fighting, what are the paychecks even looking like, or are you getting paid?
So here. So on the second time, so I'm 2-0, and I go down to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I fight in Dan Severn's Danger Zone. So Dan Severn was like a name back then. It's his show. I fight in a tournament, and it's a $40 entry fee, and I didn't bring money. I'm like, what do you mean $40? So the promoter needs it's Becky Levi and Dan Severn. Becky Levi's like, well, you better win then. She's like, all right, we're going to like whatever. So if you don't win, you're going to have to come up with the money. And I was like, I didn't bring any money, but I'm like, okay. So I ended up beating the first guy in 17 seconds with a really sick knockout. And then the next guy was a scary fucking 30-year-old that was definitely jacked up on steroids. And he was scared as fuck because he walked by us with concrete boots on like big fucking worker boots. And
Yeah.
clunking with shit dropping off of him. And he walks by me and my buddy, and there's another heavyweight, and the guy goes, I hope that guy's not in the tournament.
Oh no.
To me, and it ends up he is in the tournament.
Yeah.
He's in my division, and the guy he's supposed to fight has a heart attack or something and is out of the tournament.
What?
So I have to fight this fucking big dude who I end
Yeah.
up knocking out, and then I have to fight that guy.
Yep.
So that's also like, so this guy knows how to fight.
Yeah.
Right away, as soon as we get into the fight ends up lasting like 3.5 minutes, but like, you know, he's fucking knows something. He's trying to fucking stuff takedowns, and he's doing his thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up putting him in the guillotine on the feet, and I'm picking him up, and he almost goes straight like a board. He told us after the fight that I almost got him with it, but like I kind of like gave up on it. As soon as his feet hit, he took my legs out and took me down. So I got this big fucking beast on top of me, and I end up using jiu-jitsu, which not guys didn't know back then, and I end up sweeping him. I get the mount, and I elbow him to fucking oblivion.
Damn.
Oh my goodness.
So, end of the story. Do I make money? So I'm supposed to pay to get in, so I don't get anything. And the guy, I just beat him, and he goes, I got 20. He goes, I got more than you got. So this dude's head looks like a
Damn.
pumpkin. He ends up becoming my friend. His name's Ron Faircloth.
Cool.
And he ended up becoming a training partner of mine. He was from Madison, Wisconsin.
Hell yeah.
Wow.
But at the time, you know, I'm like, this is a guy I'm fighting in this tournament.
Yeah.
And I end up beating him up, and all this shit happens, and he still, after all that, can still crack jokes.
So
And
you
he gets
actually.
$20. And it was funny because it's like I won the whole tournament, and I didn't get anything.
So you actually at first you actually just owed money.
I owed money to fight.
Did
That's where I was
not
going with that.
did
And then
not
you-
make
And
anything.
then you just broke even?
And then I broke even.
Wow.
So people ask if, you know, they're about this, like, people all have their motivations. Well, obviously mine wasn't money
Yeah.
or fame because nobody gave a fuck about it back then. Nobody was paying back then. I did it because I fucking loved it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And,
The passion.
Yeah.
Damn.
And then everybody in their, once my parents finally found out, I was already like 6-0.
Yeah.
Finally found out what I was doing. I hid it from them. Oh, they fucking freaked out.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask.
You fucking, you know, and like people were worried. You know, we had senators trying to ban it. You know, people were like, "What? You can't make a living doing that. What are you doing?"
Yeah.
So it was way more taboo when I was starting.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't give a shit what anybody said.
Yeah, 'cause at that
I'm
time-
doing this and I'm not going to jail.
Yeah. At
Yeah.
that time, I assume boxing was probably like
I
ruling.
had, 17 years when I started 17, and the tournament I'm talking about, I'm
Yeah.
18 now when that happens. So I turned pro by 19.
Okay.
I started making money.
Yeah.
So when does the UFC come in? And how does that happen?
I take one of the longest paths to get there. I had run into Dana White a couple times in my early 20s, and he was like, "We're not taking guys you're young," and it was true. No heavyweight was under like 28. You know what
Okay.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
Josh Barnett was like a rare entity, and he was like 23, and he ended up winning the title. But outside of him, most of the guys were in their high 20s, 30s.
Okay.
And that still remains true today. Most heavyweights in the UFC are around 30 years old. That's just the thing. Like, for whatever reason, heavyweights mature slower than the other fighters.
Okay.
So I run into Dana White in my early 20s, and he's always like, "You're too young, blah, blah, blah," and just kind of brushes me off. And then I get to the IFL, which was on Fox Sports Network, and they actually had a great idea. I'm like 25 at the time. So Pat Miletich, it was a team-based system. So I got to be the heavyweight, and we had a 205, 185, 70, 55 pound. There's 5 of us. And you go against another team, and you can look it up. It's called the International Fight League. And it was a really cool thing for a couple of years. And I made good. I became a professional.
Okay.
That was when I say that paid all my bills.
Yeah.
Is when I became a professional. So I ended up going 9-0 with the IFL.
Okay.
I have a 15-second knockout. I'm all these finishes. I'm like their best heavyweight. The owner, I'm trying to work a contract, and he doesn't want to pay me what I want to renew my contract. And he shows this belt that has fake jewelry, like fake jewels in it, and it's the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life. And he's using that as his bargaining chip. And I'm like, "Hey man, I need 50 and 50." And he's like, "The belt, Ben." But the belt, and I'm like, fuck that belt. That belt ain't paying for shit. I can't even sell that belt.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? So that was our conversation. That was pretty much it. That was my goodbye to the IFL. I ended up going to Affliction. I fight Andre Arlovsky, who was a former UFC champion. We go into the third round, but I fall apart. Andre ends up getting a TKO, but I get paid for 2008. It was a gross amount of money, way more than the UFC was ever going to pay, and because the money was it's still to this day a big sticking point. So the Affliction, Todd Beard, bless him, he helped break. He paid a whole bunch of fighters. Tim Sylvia made $800,000. Andre made like $700,000. Way more than the UFC was ever paying these guys. Tim was making like $150 prior to that. So the Affliction gets done, and the negotiations open up way different for the UFC. And then it's October of 2009. The UFC's like, yeah, get this fucking guy in here.
Yeah.
And I was with them ever since.
So how did that feel when the UFC was like, yo, let's get to work?
I wish that had more Cody Lynn in me at that time, because I believe he is everything you can see as a mixed martial art. He's my best student, but he's world class. He just does everything right. And I was just always my worst enemy. Always, my whole life, my whole career. And dude, let's just be honest. I've got some highs that proved I'm one of the best in the world, and I got just as many lows. Like, I am the 50-50, man. As the high of the high, I know the low of the low. Like, I've went through all sorts of shit in this 20-some years of this. And going into the UFC, I wish I was a little more on my drive, because unfortunately I fought 9 times in a calendar year from April 2006 to April 2007, which is a lot.
Yeah.
Most a lot.
Guys do 5 fights in 1 year. It's like, holy fuck, I did 9.
Yeah.
And I had 11 in a couple of years prior to that. So my body was used to fighting all the time. And then the IFL stopped, and my manager wanted to negotiate, and a whole year goes by. And then I come into the UFC with this long ass layoff.
Yep.
And it's no excuse. Don't know.
Yeah, but you're a little rusty.
It happened.
Yeah.
And I come in the UFC and I lose my first fight.
Yeah.
And it just sucked. You know what I mean? Many guys get cut for losing 1 fight. You lose 2 fights, you're done.
Yeah.
So now my back's against the wall. I come out and I win the second fight. You know, and that's when I'm like, all right, I can get in this. I can stay in this. And then I have this up and down, you know, through the UFC for a couple of years, but I'm able to make a living, you know, fighting, but I'm going up and down, and I win and lose, and then all of a sudden I hit my stride, and I go on a 4-fight win streak, and then I'm ranked 3rd in the world, and I'm right on the cusp of a title fight. And that was what kind of that was at that period of time. That's what really made me and put it out there. That's when Dana White said in the press conference, "I respect Ben Rothwell."
Yeah,
I think that fucking did it. Like that. Then I got like everybody's head nod.
Wow.
But then I dropped the ball and I didn't fucking win the title. So
yeah,
I'm back to fucking square one.
So
and then a couple more ups and downs in here and this and that, and then I got one more fight. I'm supposed to fight Gustafsson, and then the BKFC comes along and says, "Hey Ben,
yeah,
you're a prize fighter." I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Well, we want to offer you this," and I said, "Sold."
So what do you think it was that ultimately made you not win the title in the UFC? Do you think it was just your own mind?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
My mind, yeah. It's me. It's on me. It's always on me.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't have a training partner, you didn't have a coach, blah, blah. That's weakness speaking. And none of those things. Like, you're meant to win, you're going to win. Like, a true champion learn, like, coaches help, you know, your training partners help. Yes, they're vital sometimes. But to say that you have to have it, that's not a champion. Champion rises above all of that.
Yeah, and they're going to find a way.
He even throws weight classes out the window. Really, the baddest dudes in the planet, they throw all the shit out the window. They're like, I'm the best fighter in the world. And that mentality wins. And when I'm in that mentality, I feel like I can beat anybody. But you lose a little bit of focus at that level, and you got someone that's just focused, they're going to win.
Yeah.
And I just lost a little step, and I ended up dropping a 5-round decision to another former champ, and then that was it, man.
Yeah.
Back to the win-loss bullshit. And
yeah.
Wow.
Here we are.
Yeah, shit happens.
But now we're in the BKFC, and we're 2-0, and I win my next fight, I get a title fight.
Okay.
Yes,
And we make this shit up with the bare knuckle. The reason I like bare knuckle is even UFC fighters have to put their special gloves on. Boxers wear gloves. But this is what I fight with in the ring.
Yeah.
So that means when I'm walking around with you on the street, that's what you're witnessing on TV, I get to do right here. It's right there, ready to go at all
Hell
times.
yeah.
Yeah, so you don't want to be in a street
We're
fight
the
with
real
you.
deal. That's what I like about the bare knuckle guys.
Yeah.
Dude,
We're the real deal.
You are. It's so dope to see how passionate you are with what you do. That's always cool to see someone. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, he said he didn't even make money for the first few things.
Like,
I'm not getting my ass beat for to not make. I mean, I guess you weren't getting your ass beat, but that's terrifying.
Yeah, man. What is your life like outside of the fighting and all the craziness? You know, what else do you like to do? What
it is.
What do you got going on?
We're sitting in it. So I was at Pat Militich's. So I didn't tell that part of the story. I trained in my first 5 years of my MMA career were here in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And then me and the coach were not working out, and kind of tossed me aside, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna go to the guy that taught you. And they all laughed at me, and I did. I sold my car. I got $10,000 for it. My girlfriend at the time, who became my wife, was like, yeah, fucking, I'll come stay with you for the summer. And I drove down to Pat Militich. I did the hell week they call it. And when the week was done, they go, all right, so when are you moving in? And I said, okay. And I spent 6 years there. Pat's the one that got me in the IFL. I was training at was considered the best gym in the world at the time. Mm-hmm. Well, then Pat kind of retired, and it was around 2009. And I was like, what the hell am I going to do? So I came back to Wisconsin. But I had over 10 years of experience. I'm like, I can help run a gym. Like, I can do this.
Yeah.
So I started with a guy here initially for 6 months, and we ended up trying to do a partnership. That whole partnerships don't work. Unfortunately, stood true with that one. Couldn't do a partnership with them, so I broke off. And then Ken Moore, who owned this building that we're in right now, had the spot open up. And I told him my situation. He's like, yeah, fucking gave me a really, really good deal. And I just put my equipment in here initially just to train for my fights. Mm-hmm. Nick Agler and all those local guys I was telling you about, they all wanted to come train too. Next thing I had 30 people training, and I'm like, maybe we should open it and do a gym.
Yeah.
And Rothwell MMA was born and created in 2011, and
Boom.
We've been here since. Yeah, so when I'm not fighting, I'm here and we're doing our thing, and got two sides now, and got guys like Cody Lynn running the show, and
hell yeah,
and got a good group of guys around.
Yeah, I sparred Cody Lynn on my 4th day of ever putting boxing gloves on. That was a little scary. Shout out to Cody. That guy, I see a lot of potential in him. That guy's a fucking workhorse.
It's all there. Yeah, there is no work ethic like his.
I mean, even every day when we were in here training, he was in here going ham.
Oh yeah. So I'm just curious, how do you think his career is gonna unfold? What are you excited to see from him?
Oh, world title.
Okay.
Absolutely. Like, Cody's gonna be he's one of the best in the world.
Okay.
I mean, I've watched 20-some years of fighters. I've been around multiple champions, all the things. Cody's it. It's all.
Why do you think that?
He has everything that you need. He has the work ethic. But work ethic's great, but did you put in time to learn the skills? Mm-hmm. And in MMA, it's like, it's one thing for a boxer to learn boxing and they put countless hours into punching, then kickboxing, and then elbowing and knees with the Muay Thai. Mm-hmm. Now we got to learn wrestling and all the things that go with the wrestling, and jiu-jitsu, which takes minimum 10 years for most guys to get a black belt in. Mm-hmm. And you got to put all those together. How do they blend together? How do they put them together? And then there's like this mystical spirit aura that you got to control and contain, and have the mentality to know when to be calm and aggressive and hone that. Mm-hmm. And then how do you do your warm up? How do you do your weight cutting? And I can just keep going on like this. But MMA has a lot to it, and Cody has it all. He does all of those things at the most professional level. Yeah. So I'm extremely proud. And like I said, if I had just a little more of him, I'm a multiple UFC champion. Yeah. So for all of my mistakes, I feel like he's going to make it right.
That's exactly what you want out of someone that you're training, though. You want them to do every single thing right that you did wrong.
Yeah, I think every father shares that with their son. Like, father desperately wants to put into their son, hey, this is where I messed up. You don't need to take that route. Mm-hmm. And we know it doesn't always go like that, but it's different because I'm not Cody's dad. I'm a guy that he respects and knows has went through a lot, and I don't sugarcoat anything. I let him know all the places I effed up. Mm-hmm. Don't make those mistakes. Yeah. Some of them I don't have to worry about. It's just not him and his personality. Then there's plenty other things that are, you got to watch out for people. Yeah. You got to watch out for people. You got to watch out for situations. And I feel like, I'm putting him ahead of the game because of that. So
that's actually a really good thing about having like an older figure that's not your parent, is like sometimes your parents won't tell you the shit that, like, how like parents, they act like they never did anything wrong. They don't. If like let's say a kid smokes weed or something, they're like, oh my god, da, 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 da. And I'm like, man, you telling me you didn't ever do that when you were 20 or something?
And when I was 20, and the way I thought about parents and everything is just like, it's funny because someone was making this comment on Facebook today about the 10-year version of them, and they like, I gotta delete these comments, and I'm like, absolutely not. You need to look at how you used to think 10 years ago and how you think now and what you're gonna think in 10 years from now. You need to take that shit in. And it's just like you talk about parenting. I used to think about parents, and now I'm a parent. I got a couple kids. It's like, all of a sudden, that's why my parents did that.
Yep.
That's why my parents did that. And you come to realize. So I think trying to keep that open-mindedness, and I think it's important that you can look at what you used to think like.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, look how stupid I was. Yeah, eat that. Take that. Because it's going to help you. It's going to learn from it.
Yeah.
When you try to delete it and forget it, then you're just doomed to keep making the same mistakes.
Yep. 100%.
Hell yeah, man.
Probably running out of time, so I'm going to get to that real quick. You started out the whole thing saying you're watching me and you're a big fan.
Yeah, man.
I, too, am. I didn't know about Tristan Jazz, and my friend Toby Sanders was like, hey, I got this guy.
Shout out Toby.
He wants to come see me fight. He only wants to sit in front row. I'm like, who does this guy think he is, man? This is the tickets he got. And he's like, no, bro, you got to check him out. And then I got to know a little bit about Tristan Jazz. Like, oh, this guy is their fucking local superstar. And what's even cool about it is, and you care if I talk about this, about outside of, like, I don't count Mark Ruffalo. He left the area. So he's probably, like, one of the most famous Kenoshians. But outside of the guys that are living here, he's probably one of the biggest social media presences right now. Maybe some political people, but I don't know. But I'm guessing. But the cool thing about it is I had, we got some pro sport athletes. Whatever sport they're in helped make their following. Yeah. The UFC helped make my following. I don't even kid around. And mine could be way more than it is, but I do next to nothing. Like, I put zero effort. You had no company. You had no nothing. Yours is all organic. You did it on your own, and that to me is a fucking really cool thing to see.
Yeah, right here from the 262, man, Kenosha, Wisconsin. Yeah.
Damn, that's looking interesting insight on it. I've never really thought about the fact that like everyone else that's had a career here was mainly built on like let's say the NCAA or the NFL or something like that to give them a platform.
Yeah. No, I mean it was just us having fun and trying to figure this shit out,
Yeah,
like,
and it's super cool to see. Like, it's not easy, and not even gonna pretend.
That.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna pretend to know like how much work you put in. You see it. Like, I struggle just to make a poster. You're constantly putting out quality content, editing, doing all that stuff. I mean, that's a lot of work. So you deserve everything you got.
Appreciate that, Ben.
Salute to you.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I mean, it takes a real one to know one, man. So I see you. Shit, I see what you see in me. I see in you as well. All the fucking work you've put in, and all the people you had to prove wrong, and all the doubters out there. I actually had a question for you before we wrap this up. What was it like when you felt like you made it out of Kenosha? You're in the UFC now. Like, were people acting weird around you? Was there people that were talking shit about you? Like, how when you rose up to this big pedestal of accomplishing making it to the UFC, doing all this cool shit. Like, what was it like back home? What were people thinking?
So it's got a lot of dynamics to it, that question. Because there was a time where I'm like, I am a professional fighter. I can pay all my bills. That was like a time. I told you that kind of happened in the IFL, and obviously got to continue in the UFC. I'm like, I'm doing it. I don't have to work another job no more. I'm making enough off of what I'm doing. So that for me was a major goal. Like, that was a 17-year-old said I knew I could get there, and I did. So it was like my sights were so small back then. Like, I wasn't thinking about a title or nothing. I just wanted to make a living at it, and I accomplished that goal. And then it was like I was making new goals. But there was one that was always there that kind of like haunted. That I told you that whole long story of this kid that got picked on, fat kid, all this stuff, all that years of baggage. That shit stayed with me. It still does. It's still with me. I carry it. But there was a day of peace when, believe it or not, when I first started, I'm like 20, 21 years old. I got some buddies and stuff, and I go into a bar. There's a dude in there that wants, who's this fucking dude? And he wants to challenge you, and fights happen, street fights happen. And I knew then that I knew more than most guys. I didn't want to really street fight. I didn't have to prove that anymore. That's the most reason guys want to get into a fight is they honestly want to prove themselves. And I had got some peace from MMA from that. I didn't have to. I'm fighting the best in the world now. But there was a day where somewhere around the IFL, but really, really for sure happened once I got to the UFC and started winning, that when I walked into a bar and there is still that one guy and you see him and you know he's about to, and a bunch of his buddies come and say, no way, dude. You want no part of that guy. I didn't say a word. I didn't tell anybody that I'm this and that. Hey, you don't want to mess with. No. That to me is weak. If I have to tell you what I am, then am I really? And I was a day of accomplishment. I came in, I don't have to say a single word, and the entire bar is at peace because everybody knows what I'm about.
Yeah.
And I have nobody messing with me. Nobody wants to challenge me. And honestly, that was like a day. It was like it's like I did it.
Yeah.
Peace.
Hell yeah.
And for me, it was my violence in the ring brought me true where it needed peace in the real world.
Yeah, because like you're like no one's gonna fuck with me anymore.
And I seemed to calm like a whole bar down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was kind of cool to see like these there might have been some bar fights that night, and just my presence made everybody chill the fuck out.
That reminds me of did you watch the movie Conor McGregor was just in, Roadhouse?
I didn't see the movie, but I'd seen highlights.
Yeah, that reminds me of that because like the whole premise was he's like this dude that was in the UFC in the past, and like he gets brought to this city, and they want him to stop bar fights just with his presence. That was literally the whole thing.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
I haven't seen the movie either.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I didn't
He did
ruin
that
it.
before the movie.
That's what I'm saying. That's pretty cool. That's
Came
pretty
out.
cool.
Mine is real life, yeah.
That was real life.
All right.
Well, we good?
Yeah, I think we can
Awesome.
wrap up here. That was good.
Cool. Appreciate you, Ben, for having us come through.
Oh, thanks. That's all good, guys. I appreciate you guys taking the time. You're a pretty busy guy too, so happy to be on here. I know you had a lot of rambling, so I'm not too boring, but
No, it was
you
great.
wanted the story.
It was
All
great.
good,
That's my
man.
story. So.
It was great.
It's all good, man. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all of Ben's social medias. Links will be in the description, as long as links to his website for his MMA gym. Go check it out.
April 27th, BKFC. You get to watch me. I don't know how many fights I got left, but April 27th, you can see what I can do.
Yeah, we got to watch Ben do some damage.
Where can they watch it?
So the BKFC, it's going to be pay-per-view that night.
Okay.
So if you go to BKFC Bare Knuckle Boxing or Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, they have links how to get the pay-per-view, or they want you to get their app. It's like $8 a month. So
cool.
Check it out.
Check it out and root for Ben. My name's Tristan Jass.
I'm Trent. This is Ben Rothwell.
The legend. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.